Extra, the food stall tour of doom. One day, we found ourselves crossing the border of Leonhot and making our way to a forest in the nearby cluster of small nations to get a quest done. It seemed that forest was home to a particular sort of medicinal herb, which we'd been asked to collect. It took a little effort, but we eventually managed to locate our quarry and wrap the quest up. Our success was solely thanks to the info we'd been given about where the herb could be found, though. Without that tip, I had a feeling the task would have turned into a miserable ordeal. My familiars were ready and willing to go monster slaying when the need arose, so those jobs went by nice and quick, but not so much for mundane gathering excursions, though they were happy to bring down the monsters that assailed us on the way to our destination, to be fair. In any case, the job was done and we were on our way home. The border nations were known to be in a more or less constant state of war with each other, and I was a little worried that wandering around in that region would be unsafe, but thanks to Fel and Gun being with me, the trip had ended up being as peaceful and uneventful as could be. As a result, I felt comfortable enough to stop in a large town we passed by en route. I didn't make it out to those parts very often, after all, and figured it would be a good chance to get a taste of a foreign culture. The town's name was Raduane, and if you counted the farming settlements that surrounded it, it was the fourth largest city in the whole region. After everything I'd heard about how dangerous the area was, I was expecting it to be something of a ghost town, but much to my surprise, Raduane was bustling with life. The feel of the town reminded me of a Middle Eastern marketplace that I'd seen on TV once, back in my old world. Raduane was populated by all sorts of people, humans, beast men, dwarfs, and even a few elves, but one thing they all had in common was their sturdy, sun-baked appearance. The incessant skirmishes in the area probably had something to do with that, I imagined. It stood to reason that people who lived in that sort of region would be pretty tough. While I was speculating about what life was like in Raduane, I was also walking around exploring its streets. I wasn't exactly planning on shopping, but if I stumbled across something that caught my eye as I took in the local scenery, I figured I might as well pick it up. The town itself was the real draw, though. I was captivated by the sights and sounds, so utterly different from Carolina and the other towns in Leonhot. Dora-chan and Sway clearly felt the same way, though Fel and Gen, our resident elders, were keeping their cool. I figured they'd probably been here before, though I did note that they were both keeping a sharp eye out, just in case anything taster-looking caught their attention. Chem. Let us stop at that stall, Fel said, changing course before I could even reply. Hey, wait. I called out as I followed after him. I found myself standing in front of a food stall that was grilling sizable chunks of meat. Fel's nose, apparently, had led him to it. The tantalizing odor of sizzling meat was accompanied by the smell of some sort of spice I couldn't quite pin down, which made sense, considering where we were. Whatever it was piquing my appetite like nothing else. I watched the person who was manning the stall talk to a customer for a moment, then slice several thin strips of meat off a large chunk that was on the grill, wrap them in some sort of leaf, and hand them over. I said. Kinda reminds me of doner kebabs. It reminds you of what? Fel asked, then shook his head. Regardless, I can tell that meat is worth eating. I will have some. It smells unusual, Gun added, but not unpleasant, to be sure. Yeah, agreed. Never smelled anything quite like it before, but whatever those spices are, they seem like they'd go real well with meat, Dora-chan said. Sway wants to try it too, said the party's slime. Everyone's gazes turned to me. Yeah, I heard you, I sighed. Yep, I knew where this was going the second he pointed the stall out. You guys never get tired of these places, do you? Hey, can I get 4 extra large orders? Oh, and 1 normal-sized order too, I said, stepping up to the stall. Excuse me, the stallkeeper replied. It turned out they didn't really do extra-large portions, usually, but I asked him to just make our orders as large as he possibly could, then brought our food over to a little eating area where they had set up a table and some stools. Actually eating at the table was, well, off the table, so we set up just a little ways away to try our food. The cut of meat does not impress, but the seasoning is delicious, Fel said. Indeed. Gun agreed. And although the meat has a certain gaminess to it, The spices suit that aspect of its flavor quite well. Yeah, Dora-chan said, you've got a point there. Meat like this kinda needs a certain sort of flavor to work, and this really has it. It's not like the food master cooks at all, but this is yummy too, Sway said. Leave it to the gluttonous quartet to be super particular about flavors. They were pretty spot on, though the meat really was a little gamey, but the spices seasoned it so nicely that it not only didn't bother me, it actually added something to the dish. Looks like otherworldly kebabs are pretty darn good. As I took a moment to enjoy my food, Gun spoke up again. Now then, my liege, let's visit a stall that I have had my eye on. Heh! But I only just started eating, I protested, but then I glanced at the leaves everyone's food had come in. This could hardly even be considered an appetizer. I know, right? Sway already ate it. The leaves, which, for the record, had been both on the larger side and piled high with otherworldly kebab meat, were now empty and licked clean. Yeah, guess I should have seen that coming. In my familiar's world, a dish like that might as well be a single mouthful. Come on, guys. You know, you'd probably enjoy your food a lot more if you slowed down enough to actually taste it, I sighed. Preposterous. I taste everything I eat. Yes, indeed. Right. Like, why wouldn't we? Sway tastes all of it. Well, guess I'll have to take your word for it. More importantly, my liege, let us move along and sample the next stall's fare, Gun said, but I just couldn't finish my portion off in an instant like they did. Hey, Sway, want the rest of mine? I said, offering the slime my leaf. Oh, yay, Sway replied, then plucked the remainder of my portion from my hand with a tentacle. Very good. Now then, if my nose is leading me true, we'll want to sample the food from a stall just a short walk away in this direction, Gun said. We followed along after him, and eventually arrived at a stall selling meat again. Of course, I said. Specifically, it was offering meat that was spiced and grilled on skewers. Oh, yes, this does seem appealing. No kidding. Check out the grill marks on those babies. They smell pretty decent too. They look really yummy. Indeed. Impressive, aren't they? Excuse me, Gan? Why are you acting like you're the one who cooked that stuff? Now then, my liege, if you would. I know. Once again, I bought a pretty massive amount of food for everyone, and once again, we only got a short distance away from the stall before my familiars started scarfing it all down. They spent a moment talking about its merits, and then we were off to the next stall, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Another food stall followed shortly after that one, and then another, and another, and another. HMNH. We have eaten quite a lot, have we not? Yes, indeed. I, for one, am sated. Phew. Yeah, I'm pretty stuffed over here. Sway could still eat more. We had ended up wandering here and there all across town, sampling food from every stall that caught my familiar's attention. Hey, guys. You know we've done literally nothing other than eat at food stalls all day, right? I feebly protested. And what of it? Fel asked. The food was delicious, was it not? True. And it was fun indeed to encounter so many new flavors. You said it. Don't get me wrong, the stuff we usually eat beats out everything we tried today, but some of it was just so crazy different from what we normally have. It wasn't all great, but you gotta shake things up every once in a while. Sway likes food like this too, sometimes. I mean, I get it. Food stalls in foreign countries are great. What's not great is scarfing down your food, and then making a beeline straight to the next stall. I wanted to take my time, savor the food, and see the sights. I didn't get any shopping done either. Surely the food was exotic enough to satisfy those needs. Well said. Flavors from a foreign land are truly worth experiencing. For sure. It's always great when you end up trying something really spicy, or something that doesn't taste like anything you've ever had before. Some of it was really spicy. Sway usually doesn't like it when food's spicy, but it had so many other flavors too. It was so weird. According to a guy who was running one of the stalls we'd stopped at, tons of spices were grown in Radouane's vicinity. As a result, many spices that were ridiculously expensive in other places were cheap and readily available enough for people to cook with them on the regular here. Okay, but that's all food. I'm talking about other stuff, like the city's atmosphere, and its famous tourist attractions, and all that, I explained, but I clearly wasn't getting through to them at all. The gluttonous quartet prioritized food above all else, and the concept of enjoying the atmosphere of a foreign town was totally beyond them. I sighed. You know what? It's fine, whatever. We still have some time before night falls, though, so let me get a little shopping in, at least. I'd wanted to use the rare opportunity this visit to a town in the border region presented to soak in the exotic feel of an unfamiliar country, but instead, I'd been roped into an all-day food stall tour of doom. Such was the fate of anyone who wound up traveling with the gluttonous quartet. Woe is me.